Aloha. See if this is working. I just wanted to address some questions people have been bringing up in reference to Flat Earth overall, but specifically the Flat Earth Conference. Let me get this out of my ear. It makes me feel weird hearing it backwards. Um, yeah, so specifically the Flat Earth Conference. And my response is I really don't have any. I have no feelings towards it at all. It's not at all. It's not at all. Like, and it's just another thing. It's just, I mean, a convention is a convention, but this always boils down to like what I've been asking of the so-called flat Earth community forever now, which is like, what are your intentions? Like, what do you plan on doing with this energy or this so-called movement? What is the purpose of this? And that's one thing that still to this day a lot of people are still okay with just allowing to be, when from my perspective that's been like the biggest setback, is for people not being able to really anchor down or stand firm in their intentions. Like, how far are you willing to go? What are you willing to like expand upon? Because a lot of the movement or change that is being asked of from people, it comes from having a solid definition of who and what you are and are about. So, as I've said in previous videos, how people get caught up in the why or the what consciousness or the who consciousness before they even get into what's going on. We don't even understand how or why things are going on. The existence of the Flat Earth Convention to me is kind of like another version of the way it's designed. Like, it's nothing inherently wrong with people getting together and hanging out and talking about stuff, obviously. But like I said before, something does like develop over time of not really locking in your intention. So, like, an example of that is we just had the 2018 convention this year. I didn't go, I just saw little clips of it. We had the 2018 convention this year, the 2017 last year. And now it was pretty much the same thing as last year. And there's no push towards any kind of movement. It's all people creating a space for people to, from how I see it now, the biggest thing that I see the convention doing is creating talking points or spaces for people to communicate about something that they're not normally allowed to communicate from. But like I said, you could do that forever, because there's always going to be a constant influx of people, new people. And that's kind of like how I see what the intentions of this flat earth circle group of people is really coming from. So it's not like I'm saying these individuals are inherently um, like villainous or malevolent. Most of the times people aren't aware. Like, a lot of the things that happen in society happen because a lot of the people are not aware of how jacked up things are. So the masses allow these things to happen. But this is why I seemingly come down so hard on the flat earth community, is because they are aware of a lot of these so-called truths and have been aware of one of the biggest truths out there for a while now, and yet have not done the internal work. This is this is an example of what I was talking about before, about how like the conventions are really nothing unless you um, like lock in your intentions. So there's nothing going to be coming from a convention other than media attention, which is cool. For what purpose though? For what point? That's the whole point. So I asked like Robbie Davidson, um, whoever else was out there running the thing, like literally, what are your intentions? And then some people can jump off into the what are they called, theories of some intentions, where you have people like so I'll make a comparison from last year's convention to this year's convention, and then go into how these are some of the things that keep us from really understanding and overstanding what your real intentions are. So last year there was a big stink about the Flat Earth Convention being all about Christianity. So and anytime that question comes up, um, I'm always saying, like, does it do any good? Like, is it any benefit, or does it do more harm? So, Christianity in the conversation of flat Earth, does it do more benefit, or does it do more harm to the conversation? Do you need the Bible to speak on flat Earth? No. Do you need Christianity to speak on flat Earth? No. Do you need you don't even need to have that whole relationship to the Creator talk in order to speak on flat Earth. There's enough information out there, so that goes into the question, like I said before: does it do more harm, or does it do more benefit, or does it bring a benefit to the situation? So when you see that, and for people who are going to see where I'm coming from, if you want an organic sort of flat Earth convention, you have to let go of the dead weight. You have to set your intentions first of all, which is the convention has not at all done that. It's just a party for flat earthers to get together, and not a party like, hey, we're partying, but a party in reference to like, there's no intentions other than, creating media, creating attention, and getting everybody together to have a good time and talk about things that you can't talk about normally. That's basically like a party. It becomes not a party when you have like intentions that are set in society, the intentions that are set in the community, intentions that are set in and around the people who are going there. You're developing something that is going to generate more movement over time. So the question is, like I said, is it a more benefit or a more harm to the situation? Now going in comparison, this is a good comparison into like the vegan agenda. So like, oh, and that's what I was comparing it to earlier. So this is the same way I explained flat Earth's relationship to Christianity. The same relationship goes to veganism and the industry, the meat eating or the meat factory industry. So a lot of the reasons why I shy away from the vegan circles is because I'm not vegan myself. I'm vegetarian, but and even still, I'll get into the whole reasons why in a moment, because it really is a part of this whole, kind of like how you understand there's an alien agenda. You can understand that there's a new world order agenda circled around, and a new age agenda circled around all this like sustainable living and all this other stuff. So these are these controlled oppositions, or these controlled movements that are being put out there. And then the people don't necessarily have to be aware of what's going on. They just have to be at a certain level of consciousness that's going to allow them to lock themselves in a loop of controlled opposition information. So Alex Jones is like this, TYT does this, QAnon does this, certain YouTube truther channels do this, Mark Dice definitely does this. An obvious example is like, and this goes back to the intentions things before. It's kind of like, what are your intentions? The difference between like an Alex Jones and a flat earth, to make it even more obvious, flat earth community, is that Alex Jones sets his intention. His intentions are, let's revert back to the old 1776. So basically what their mentality, the forefathers. So they're basically saying, let's only deal with the problems that have developed after 1776. So let's basically only deal with the problems that affect the post-Columbian successful peoples. That's what Alex Jones and all the other people are trying to protect, the capitalist Western colonial mentality. That's really what they're talking about. This includes all of these actors and actresses and musicians out there who are, getting behind politics and all this other stuff. I even watched just now a show. I can't remember what the show is called. It's One Small Rock, I think, or something like that. But it's a National Geographic show, and they're running through the Big Bang Theory in reference to how meteors are created. So they tell that story over and over and over again, like, oh yeah, meteors are created the same way your Earth was created. So this is a confirmation. Well, they tell you, but it's not. They tell you like it is a confirmation of fact, when it's actually just a repetition of theory. So, but since they put fancy new colors and cartoons and CGI on it, you think it's real. So this is basically what's happening to the consciousness of humanity right now. We keep getting new versions of the same thing painted back to us with new paint, as if it's something of an as it's evolving, as if it's evolving us, when in fact it's de-evolving us. So technology does this too. Technology is sold to you by the so-called powers that be to make you believe that technology is part of the next evolutionary step of humanity. So they make you believe that, and then you ignorantly usher in the world that brings that belief into fruition. So this is why all these theories and all this whole world is dedicated toward selling you illusions. So I think I finished the vegan thing. So the same way flat earth doesn't need the Bible, or doesn't need a lot of other things. It's basically like cutting the fat. Like cutting the fat off of, cut the fat off the flat earth. Cut the fat off of the conscious community, the black conscious community. The mainstream media is all fat. That's what we can understand right now. It's just all fat and sugar. So you can understand what flat earth. So what's the fat and the sugar and the starches and the desserts of the flat earth community? Well, it's basically the flat earth convention, because it's nothing but fats and sugars. There's no meat there. There's no nothing. The intentions are the meat. The intentions are where you're going to get your energy from. The intentions are the lasting power. The intentions are the information that has no, it's not attached to anything that is, wishy-washy or loose, or it's tight. It's locked in. So these are like intentions and definitions. They're tight and they're locked in. The New Age community has none of this. This is why they lock all of their intentions and their energy into the alien agenda. So you can understand that as like something else. They need that though. Like the, the New Age community needs the aliens. So like Flat Earth doesn't need the Bible, but when you have nothing, no legs to stand on, you need some heavy duty things to make you think like, oh yeah, this is the way it is. So you have the New Age community with all its so-called healing mechanisms, and then you have the alien agenda with that, and then you have the connection with the old teachings, like the ancient ancestral teachings. So a lot of people are locked into that because that's not at all a part of the mainstream agenda, and people are escaping from that. So when people are escaping from that, they're gonna go to the most comfortable rest stop, and that's the problem with a lot of these situations out here. Is these people get into these rest stop situations where it's supposed to be a hospital. It's not supposed to be a retirement community. So like the New Age community is basically supposed to be like a healing rest stop, because there are some positive spaces or positive things to, like yoga and crystals and meditation and connecting with your higher self and understanding the chakras and the energy centers of like who and what you are, and so on and so forth. That's all like organic stuff. It's kind of like the organic information that comes from Flat Earth. You don't need all the extra stuff. It's organic information to understand and confirm that there's no curvature. You can confirm that with a video camera and confirm that with my own eyes next to the curvature math of the establishment itself. So that's like all, there's no extra, feeling there. It is just what it is, and what you're gonna do with it is gonna determine like how far you're willing to go and what you're doing. So a lot of these people are only willing to get together and do a party in the so-called Flat Earth community. A lot of these people in the vegan community are only willing to get out there and then yell and protest, but they're not willing to take it as far as like what the animal, what the flesh thing is with in reference to the spiritual warfare. So the vegan community is on purpose locked into the physical warfare of industry, finance, economy, capitalism, when in actual fact the biggest thing that I see, and a lot of other people who are understanding the psychological and spiritual warfare, they are understanding, and overstanding that your relationship to living beings, sentient beings, is different than your relationship to like plants. Your relationship to sentient beings is more powerful, it's more important than your relationship to industry. So instead of focusing on how bad industry and the corporations are to animals, we could focus on how amazing our bodies are. Like that's a different approach to something more, to something deeper than just politics or so yeah, that's the approach that I'm taking in reference to the same way to Flat Earth. Like I don't not eat meat because um, the corporations first and foremost, this and that and this. Obviously, I have I have a feeling like it's fucked up what they're doing to animals. That's obvious, but before that, in order to have it lock and anchor in somewhere deep into who and what I am, and for my family to share that information with my family, it has to go down to the psychology and the spirit and the body all in one. It can't be in reaction to how bad corporations are to animals. You're never going to get anywhere with that. We already know it and how fucked up things are. And beyond that, you're not really going to you're not gonna present, you're not gonna bring to the bring any information to the table of anybody for anybody to do anything with that, that's gonna empower them. They're not gonna be able to empower themselves with anger. I mean, they can trigger something from being angry, but you can't stay in that angry mentality forever. You have to challenge yourself to transmute that energy into something beneficial, something that is going to work for the better rather than work against you. Anger can trigger you. It has a purpose. It can trigger you. But the same way, like the New Age community, if you start to use these tools like anger as a tool to trigger in something, it'll eventually start to work against you, because you will expand yourself outside of the capabilities of that tool. And when you expand yourself out of the capabilities of that tool, if you still hold on to that tool because it's now become an addiction or a safety net or a crutch, that tool or that crutch will eventually start to work against you. So it's kind of like running. You break your leg, you need a crutch for a little while to help with the leg. Once you heal that leg, you can run faster without that crutch. But if you hold on to that crutch and you're too like scared to use your leg, you're not going to be able to move as fast as you need to. So people are using the New Age community as a crutch. They're using the vegan community as a crutch, the flat earth community as a crutch. Once, that's the whole point, and this loops back to what I said before, the intention. It's not a crutch in like, oh yeah, you're fucked up because you're using crutches. It's a crutch in a reference to understanding and overstanding that this entire process is a healing process. So when you explain it from a healing perspective in reference to people needing crutches for a certain amount of time, then you can understand after that certain amount of time, it's going to mess you up. It's going to work against you. And this is the problem people have with when you bring up information about like racism, when you bring up information about the New Age community and flat earth community, they think you're talking about like the community itself. Like, I'm not talking about the community itself. I'm talking about the intentions that aren't there. I'm talking about the implications that come from, selling a tool as an end all be all. So even the Bible is a tool. The Bible is no closer to the Most High than you are. So if you understand that, then you can understand that the Bible it maxes out at your lowest capabilities. So if that's the case, then if you keep using that as like if you keep revisiting that as like you're gonna max out as that. So flat earth, using the Bible and having this heavy Christian Bible presence, it's gonna max out at that consciousness. It won't be able to go any further than that. Hence, the people that are going along with that will also will also max out at that. That's why I was saying that it's dangerous. It can be dangerous for people to use this tool and keep using this crutch as a thing. And then, yeah. 3 years, this is what I'm saying, 3 years after using this crutch or this healing process, I'm saying we're about 2 years over. I'm just speaking very generally, obviously, because people are forever entering in, starting fresh, so they need that starting point. But my point is, like, for the people the seasoned, so-called flat earthers, people who've been in and around this for a while, it's kind of like, all right, Flat Earth Convention 2025, what's the difference from Flat Earth Convention 2018? What have you done now? You got some more celebrities there? You moved from YouTube celebrities to Hollywood celebrities now? Oh, great, good for you. Like, now what? What's going to happen now? Like I said, I don't think I finished what I was saying in reference to that meteor show on National Geographic. The point was, this is a new show. They're still selling the Big Bang over and over and over again. Point was, They got actors on there. Will Smith is on there. One of the biggest, he's going to be the crossover YouTube Hollywood YouTube channel. He was one of the first ones, big ones, to come out with a YouTube channel and then get into that that world. But the point is, he's also on National Geographic. Other politicians or other actors are playing political roles, like Rosario Dawson and the whole voting thing. All these actors and actresses are all intertwined in and throughout all these things and these situations. Their intentions. So their intentions are to protect that system, regardless of what they're saying. Like they got Morgan Freeman on there talking about God, like on National Geographic. You got all these things that are talking, but what are their intentions? What's the intentions of the Hollywood industry? What's the intentions of the mainstream media? You can only find the intentions once you trace back the intentions through the historical timelines. So once you go through the timelines, what were the intentions in the 80s? What were the intentions in the 90s? What were the intentions in the 60s, the 50s, the 70s, the 40s, the 30s, the 20s? Like, what were the intentions of the establishment of that time? This is why I bring so much information up about racism, is because racism, once you clear out and this goes into the whole idea of what people call truth. Like, you call yourself a truther a lot of the times, but some truth or some information is off limits. Like, you can't talk about the truth of colonialism and genocide and institutionalized racism. You can't talk about this stuff, but you call yourself a truther. So you're like a diet truther. Like, some truth is offensive, some truth. So this is why I said you will find people's intentions in where their limitations are. So when people get all butthurt about you talking about colonialism and the mind control, the psychological warfare of all that, you can see where people are. You can see what people's intentions are, whether they see the intentions or not. So give the benefit of the doubt to the biggest Hollywood celebrity out there with the biggest heart, but they're ignorant as shit. They don't know anything about what's going on in the world. How much damage have they done by being a tool of that industry? Is it their fault? No. Like I said, benefit of the doubt, they don't know. They're just being used as a tool. It's the same way a lot of these other tools are used to work against you. Once you get into the biggest, the biggest breakdown of it all, you'll see that the tools of like the New Age community and the tools of like Netflix and all this other stuff are no different than the tools that are used against the individuals in society to break people down. So the tools that were the tool of the drugs that were pumped in by the CIA into the inner cities, the tool of Planned Parenthood in the depopulation program for the inner cities and the black and brown peoples of the United States, the intentions of putting guns into the community, drugs and guns and the mainstream media, even down to hot Cheetos, like the cancer-causing industry of the food industry. Hot Cheetos are the best-selling, chip out there right now in inner cities, and that red flavoring and that all that cheese and everything, and that addiction that like Oreos are like more addicted than cocaine. The same thing goes with like cheese. Cheese is an addictive thing. So they're just getting dollars every day. You get up, you buy a bag of hot Cheetos. That's 99 cents. That's 99 cents towards the benefit of the system, and 99 cents times 1,000 towards the destruction of who and what you are, your body, your mind, and your soul. So we're working like 1,000 back, 1,000 backwards on our own empowerment, and like $1 back on theirs. So we're financially or economically destroying ourselves, and physically destroying ourselves, because we never really sit down long enough to express our intentions. The intentions of the colonizers were known. The intentions were to take over all the land and make this land their own. by any means necessary. And that included genocide, using biochemical warfare, the syphilis experiments, um, the Trail of Tears, the smallpox blankets, genetically modified food, chemtrails, fluoride in the water, um, institutionalized racism, lynching people, burning people, blowing bombs up, using slave babies as alligator bait, enslaving people, um, using economic hitmen, using regular hitmen to take out a lot of these, a lot of these powerful leaders. Gaddafi, when he was talking about the primary waters, he was talking about breaking away from the dollar. He was talking about empowering Africa against the so-called powers that be, and they took him out. So, you can see the intentions there. Like people in the flat Earth circles, they talk about Gaddafi. They know about this stuff. They know about all this information that I reference on there. But like I said, a lot of these people are so caught up in the merry-go-round that is the new information, the shiny bell or whistle that is the flat Earth. A lot of people don't break out of that because it's forever new to people. It's forever fresh. You're always gonna have a lot of people that are gonna be there. But like I said in previous videos, the establishment is aware of what's going on. You think they're gonna just let this go? Look at Logan Paul come into the Flat Earth Convention now. He's a YouTuber, for people who don't know. It's like millions of subscribers. This is gonna be a thing. They might not necessarily completely own Flat Earth, but they will get into a space of acting like Flat Earth is. They're moving more towards acknowledging Flat Earth's existence. So that's the whole thing. What are they going to do with it? What's the purpose now? What are they? Once they get to that point where they say, all right, we have enough people who kind of believe it. We have enough people who really believe it. We have enough people who are working against us now. Now what are we going to do with it? Because that's a point. This is a warfare. This is a psychological warfare. This is a whole thing. Everywhere. Spiritual, everything. So to kind of tie this up and loop it back to what I was saying before about the intention, about the Flat Earth Convention, like I said, to the people who are running the convention, what's going to be on the agenda for 2025? What's going to be on the agenda for 2030? What's on the agenda for, you see what I'm saying? Like, what's on the agenda? You already did two now. There was a convention last year and a convention this year. How different was the one this year from the one last year? Was the difference in reference to the event, or was the difference in reference to the empowerment of the people? Some people will say both. My thing is, it's where is the focus? Like, where is the intention? So I think I made my point on this. The point that I want to emphasize is that for even the individuals that are out here, call yourself a truther, flat earther, whatever it is. When I focus on information in reference to truth and so-called the flat earth community, like I've said from the get-go, the lie is what really matters. So if the lie is what really matters, because that's where the power comes from, that's where the illusions come from, then the shape and the structure that pales in comparison to like what really matters. It's the lie. So that's one of the biggest disconnects that I see with the whole convention thing. The convention, yeah, they might talk about some stuff. They'll talk about the Bible. They'll talk about the politics of flat Earth. They'll talk about, But a lot of it is focused only on like the shape and all that other stuff. I'm not saying it's all about the shape. I obviously wasn't there. I'm just saying, point being, like I said, what are the intentions? What's 2025 gonna be about? What are we gonna do here? What is we? Who are we? Does the flat Earth community plan on talking to the Black conscious community? What does it think about the New Age community? Like, how does that fit into the United Nations? I'm not saying anybody needs to be talking about any of this stuff. These are just questions that I bring up, that if I was to bring up these, like if I was to sit on that panel that they had, because that's really all I really saw. I didn't really see anything else. I saw the panel of people up there. But, yeah, like what? Some of the things that I want to talk about, like they'll be poo-pooed or they'll be booed or they'll just be like pushed to the side. If I would really ask some of the questions that I really want to ask, and I was on that panel, if I was to talk about the things that I really want to talk about, you can kind of sense the response there. And that's my whole problem. It's not really a problem, it's just an observation of so-called truthers not really wanting to talk about the whole truth. They just want to talk about the truth that's comfortable for them. So the Flat Earth Convention is, to me, it's about talking about the flat Earth that's comfortable for people. Once you get into talking about the flat Earth that's uncomfortable for people, then that's when you can't really be a part of a convention, because their intentions are set there. When you see that there's some things that you can say that can make people uncomfortable in an entire convention, then that's when you can see where their intentions are, their limitations are. So when you understand that some things that, like, I would say would throw things off, or anybody else would say would throw things off, there's people who, change their questions, change their responses on the panel because it'll throw things off. So that's the thing. If that's the case, then you can understand that the intentions of the convention are really focused on the convention. It's all about the convention. It's all about how it looks. It's not about really what it does. It's about how it's perceived by the big players. And that's why I'm saying the convention has everything flipped and reversed. We are the big players. The people are the big players. But when the convention creates a whole thing in order to create media attention, you're setting yourself up as the small potatoes. You're setting yourself up as the powerless one. You're still asking for recognition or acknowledgement from an authority that is the system, that is inherent in the intentions of the convention. What I'm saying is that that's an automatic. The way it's set up. What I'm saying is that that's an automatic kind of thing that works against you, because where I'm coming from is that when you address flat Earth from the human story, you're talking about authority. You're talking about the authority to make people think, act, and feel a certain way. When you can create a situation or mind frames where people think, act, and feel a certain way, that's when you're talking about the intentions. So the intentions, when you go there and there's some things that you can't talk about, they come about and they exist inside the people. They're going to take that now to their friends now. And they're going to know, like, hey, I don't want to talk about this. Like I'm saying, I understand the complexities of, breaking this stuff down and expanding upon it. But it's, in my eyes, like, we have to start holding ourselves more accountable for, like, our intentions, and, like, being impeccable with what we're really doing here. Like, that's what I ask people who are at the Flat Earth Convention, people who are on the panel, people who are paid, people who are there, any of this other stuff. Like, what what are you really working towards? Personally and on the macro scale. What do you think you're working towards? Because that's when, let's say, like I said in previous videos, you wake up tomorrow and everybody believes or understands flat earth. Now what? You still gonna have a whole bunch of people who are still enslaved psychologically and spiritually. And then you have flat earth Christians who are going to say, well, we have the answers for you. Here's flat earth and the Bible. Boom, your entire world is fixed. You got your physical and your so-called spiritual, but you ain't got your psychological. You know why? Because the psychological is intertwined into the ownership, the mind control of mainstream religions, of parts of the Bible, of a lot of this stuff that we think is for our spiritual expansion. But like I said, they're just tools. They're tools that work against you once you don't recognize you become ignorant to your own self. You become ignorant to your own self and your own expansion because you've got caught up into the external versions of what's going on, like flat earth, like the new age, like all this other stuff. You invest all your energies into that, you lose yourself. And then you can't recognize yourself in comparison or you can't differentiate yourself between you and the tool. You can't differentiate yourself between you and the world that has been fabricated around you. And when you're in that space, that's when the tools that you use to get you to that space start to work against you, because the tools are now reminiscent of that world. They're vibing. They're shining. They're vibrating from the energy of a world you already expanded and expanded outside of. So if you do not, like, you can remain comfortable in there because you keep repeating the same pattern. So this happens in flat earth communities. It happens in new age communities. That's why I said what's going to happen in the flat earth convention in 2025. What are you really talking about? What are you really doing here? See, a lot of these individuals who are doing stuff like this convention, they're pretty much just copying and pasting what old world, ways of things of doing. How the old people, the older, tea parties sort of thing have done things, and you're like, this is not what we're talking about here. There's an whole aspect of warfare that a lot of these people are not even aware of. Not like, oh yeah, we're talking about we're better. Nah, I ain't talking about that. It's a whole process. I was there at one point, and people really do think this is like a game. They think this is like, look at all the faces and all the approaches, the way people are talking about flat earth in the very essence of the flat earth convention itself is presenting an atmosphere that this is a game. That lying to you about your reality is something that can just be like talked about in a convention. That alone is softening it up. That alone is softening up your approach to, like, on a very general scale. Obviously, certain people who are game to go that far, they ain't gonna let anything stop them from feeling the depths of their feeling. But when you have somebody turn the lie of the very nature of your cosmology, the lie of the very nature of your reality into a fucking convention, that's when you're losing. You've already set yourself up for failure. Basic. That's what you set yourself up for failure. And like I said, that's an extreme space to take it. But when you have all the people who are, generating all this energy towards a particular thought process, it's not locked down into any. That's the one positive thing about flat earth, that it's not locked down to one anything, because you're talking about lies overall. The lie of your reality is open to interpretation. And you got all these people interpreting it from the Bible, interpreting it from whatever else they want to see it from. Ain't nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying is that you're still in Theoryville. You're still in the same place that you were in heliocentrism. So if that's the case, then why do we have this tendency to jump straight into another I know this, or another this is the way it is, when we haven't even understood the alchemy of asking questions? We haven't understood the alchemy of asking, presenting deeper questions or perspectives of this reality. We already know why, because the Bible was there. Get the fuck out of here, man. Like, and just because it's old and it's been around for a while, and like I said before in all these other previous videos, a lot of these Bible pushers, they have to remain willfully ignorant of the stuff that predates that. And they got an answer for everything. An answer for Egypt. They got an answer for, civilization. An answer for racism. An answer for all the shit against women. An answer for the shit against racism. An answer for the shit against this. They got answers for everything. And that's what I said. What's the intentions in that? If your answers, if you're if you're constantly defending something, then your intentions are not for the benefit of expanding your perspective, your psyche, your spirit. Your intentions are there for the defending of the Bible, for the defending of Christianity, for the defending of a tool, for the defending of something that is outside of you. And it's easy, like I said. People get real caught up in a lot of this stuff because it's easy to do that. It's easier to do that. It's easier to default to something like that. It's harder to, float out in this reality on your own, asking questions and saying, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I will continue to ask questions until then. But as of now, let me go ahead and clear all this excess trash out of my reality before I move into another I know situation. And that's what I see a lot of these communities are not really taking into account. They're really communities and individuals. They're jumping from like, well, this is and goes into like I said before, the Occam's razor sort of thing. Just because this plus this doesn't equal this because it's obvious, doesn't mean that it equals this because it's the opposite of that obviousness. It doesn't work like that. That's that whole Occam's razor, like, oh well, the easiest. No. That's what's been going on. That's what's been keeping people from using their imagination and going deep into questioning this reality for so long, is because they got all these old school ass like mentalities that are keeping us from even thinking. We can't think past the intentions of a genocidal system. We can't feel past the intentions of a genocidal system. We can't even interpret past the intentions of a colonial system that is still benefiting on and banking on the ignorance of the masses. So if the ignorance of the masses is just being dressed up in a fancier suit each year, it's not doing anything but helping the system and keeping people from realizing that the system exists to maintain that. So I mean, there's so many different ways to approach this, but the main thing I wanted to do with this video, I didn't want it to go this long. The main thing I wanted to do with this video is emphasize kind of like the controlled opposition, emphasize the relationship between like how the vegan agenda is. There's a difference between not eating meat because the soul, the mind, and the body interpretation of what's going on, and not eating meat because the chickens are treated like shit and cows are treated like shit and all that other stuff. See, that's what the system wants you to do. It wants you to approach these perspectives from a limited, shallow, like a Democratic and Republican perspective, so that the answers for those limited perspectives seem godly. They seem like it came from a king. So if they keep you in a limited perspective, if they share with you this mediocre perspective that's way bigger than the limited perspective, a mediocre perspective, seems like, like something that came out of the sky. So this is what's happening with a lot of flat earthers. They're capitalizing on that, and they're saying, like, if I just talk about flat Earth, I'm just pretty much godly, pretty much. But they only go as far as their own consciousness, so they step into that world, and they only go as far as like a convention or a toy or a model or something like that. And this is not to be like coming down on people. It's just an obvious observation. So yeah, if you're a revolutionary, you're gonna take something like flat Earth and you're gonna be like, well, this needs to be utilized and seen from a perspective of revolution. But if you're just a regular ass, just like whatever, then you're gonna take flat Earth and turn it into a convention or turn it into a model or turn it into some fucking shit that's not really gonna help or benefit more than a few people. And like I said, that's why I don't want to come down on. It don't seem like I'm coming down on people. More to emphasize the benefit of empowering yourself. Don't just say it's us versus them, flat versus the globe, and we have a convention and we're cool and we're smart and we're hip. But then have nothing to really back that up. That's basically what's going on. That's what kind of irritates me with the whole flat earth community. They talk a lot of shit, but they ain't got nothing to back it up. There's nothing empowering about them. The only empowerment about the flat earth community is that it's not the globe community. That's it. That's the main power. But is that a real power? Is that a real movement? No. That is an illusion. It's a reaction to. Whereas taking the information, realizing the lie of heliocentrism and empowering yourself from the perspective of the human story and realizing on the lie and unhinging, taking all this extra weight, the weight of the way we interpret our reality, the weight of not even living our reality without having any fucking intentions. That's another weight that we have. We carry around all that weight. We don't even realize it because we're so used to the weight. So until we start realizing what this weight really is, we're not really going to do anything with it. So, yeah, on that note, that's pretty much what I wanted to boil this stuff down. Like, the way the vegan agenda is being promoted to the people is not really going to do anything towards the empowerment or the expansion of the consciousness of the people. It's only going to keep all the energy focused on the industry, the corporations, and it maintains the power on the industry and the corporations when you do that. The same thing is going for flat earth. Flat earth right now, the biggest power it has is the earth is obviously not a globe. So, but that is not a power. That is just a reactionary side effect towards, what has happened. The people haven't found their power yet. The power is in your intentions. The power is in realizing the depths of this situation. See, people who are not in the space of being able to set their intentions is because they still got a lot of weight around them. They still got all these tools. People who are not ready to set their intentions will continue to work on like lifting weights and doing like psychological, spiritual, physical weights in order to expand their consciousness to a point to where they can set their intentions. So what's happening, and this is why I said I'm not coming down. It's not a person. I don't give a shit about what's going on with the individuals going to these conferences or whatever. I know it's a process. It's a process that everybody has to go through. I went through and am still going through. The thing is that these individuals are taking the process of expansion, a regular ass thing, and have dressed it in like a big ass, a suit, a fancy car, a fancy dress, and all this other. It's just some regular ass shit. You can't make a conference or a convention out of regular ass life. Like that's basically what the convention is. When you boil the flat Earth convention down into the intentions and what it's all about, it's just regular ass shit. Like the Earth has always been not a globe. It's always been like that. So what are you really having a convention for? It's in reaction to the world of the globe. So until we stop acting in reaction to on every level, we're not going to be able to do anything worth any kind of movement because we're not going to know how to move. That's the whole point. Figure out how to move. Figure out how to set your intentions. Figure out where to start. Flat Earth is starting, with the Christian a lot of them, Christians, a lot of them are starting from the science. Oh, let's get the science down. Let's go to the North Pole. Let's go to Antarctica. Let's do this. Even when you do all that stuff, is it going to get you closer to the biggest mind control program, which is the spiritual warfare? Is it going to get you closer? Yeah, to get you closer to that. Is it going to do anything for that? Not really. You're going to have to let go of that old weight in order to expand into the new one. So that's the thing. It's beneficial up to a point. That's another part, or what I was telling about before. All this stuff is beneficial up to a point. But when I address it, when I talk about it, like, oh yeah, what do you mean it's all bad? I'm like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying, shit. I feel like I can't say it anymore. So yeah, it was the vegan thing comparison to flat Earth. Easy comparison there. They want you limited on your relationship to change, limited on your relationship to your intentions, limited on your relationship to the scope of institutionalized racism, institutionalized poverty on many different levels: psychological poverty, spiritual poverty, physical poverty. It's all maintained on purpose. And now, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm not saying, anything like that. There's just a lot of information that I'm still not aware of that I'm sharing. The only thing that I'm sharing right now, one of the intentions with this video is to keep people realizing that intentions exist and start asking questions about intentions, because in that question, you'll start to understand who and what people are really about. What are they really? Where are they coming from? Where are they going to max out? What's going on right now? What's going to be going on in the future? Once you start asking those, before you ask those questions, you're going to be caught up in the bubble of this is amazing, this is great, which is, it's a learning process. People can take advantage of in that situation, but even further, it's really going to boil down to you. What is flat Earth meant? What does it mean to you? And then that's where you'll find your own intentions. You'll find your own anchor points, your own foundations. What does the lie mean to you? How did all these lies? What were the intentions? Like I said, the intentions of the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, 50s, 40s, all the way up. Those intentions in society, in the establishment, in the cosmology, in the university system, the intentions of white supremacy, the intentions of institutionalized racism, the intentions of making it so people can't even vote, making it so people can't even talk or drink, and there's a psychological side effect to telling somebody that they're not human, that they're less than, not only that they're not human, but these other people are more human than you are. They're for hundreds and hundreds of years, this happening, and then writing books on that. And then, when you see that and you know that, and then people saying, that doesn't matter. Okay. See how long you can get around that, and see what side of the storyline you're going to be on when the shit really does hit the fan, on these different levels. Because it's hit the fan. That's why people are waiting for whatever. They're waiting for a savior, waiting for this, waiting for that. But like I said, shit's already hit the fan. It's already hit the fan for the indigenous people. It's been hitting the fan for the last hundreds and hundreds of years. So all these people in the truther community talking about when this happens, fuck that. It's already been happening. When people are already talking about the New World Order and this is gonna happen, the economy and all this other shit, you already know where they're coming from and what they're about, because you can understand that they're not even acknowledging what has the devastation that already has happened. They're not acknowledging the massacre and the genocide that already has happened, the shit that led up to now. So if that's the case, then what what questions are we really asking? Like, where are we really going? And so that you can see what I'm saying now, like where I'm coming from, and you know, rather than just showing up to conventions and doing stuff, really just sit down for a moment, have like a waking meditation, and start asking these questions, and then we'll see things from a perspective we didn't see before when we do that. So I'll leave it here. Thanks again for the ongoing support of everybody. I really do appreciate that. Um, I've been slowing down. There's a time to slow down for me now, and then maybe I'll speed up soon. But yeah, I really do appreciate all the support. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love,